you mentioned humanoid robots there, and it's something I wanted to touch on as well, because obviously there's multiple companies currently working on humanoid robots, which are powered by artificial intelligence systems. And if you break it down how they work, you can now take a picture with your phone and then you can upload it to ChatGPT or Claude or whichever AI model you're using, and it will kind of understand what it's seeing, right? So if you take a picture of a table and you put a glass at the very edge of the table and you ask, hey, what is likely to happen next? It will tell you the glass may fall off, which is, of course, an incredible leap in technology compared to what we have had 3 to 4 years ago. However, robotics and letting a robot loose in the real world is still incredibly complex. And if we're looking at why Tesla is currently, why Tesla has managed to even have self-driving vehicles on the road, is because they had millions of vehicles continuously recording every possible scenario and then train their AIs based on all those different scenarios. And now it looks like magic. And now they are able to drive through the streets of New York and Las Vegas and every other busy city they are currently allowed in. So that's, again, an incredible leap in technology. However, it still doesn't solve the training data issue we have for everyday tasks. I mean, I believe Elon is currently working on gathering data from like regular computer workers. So any task we are now doing on the computer may one day be automated as well. And it's something that perhaps a combination of humanoid robots and computers itself can do. But still, if you have a humanoid robot on the surface of a different planet, we don't really have a lot of training data for those scenarios. And I don't see any possibility at this point how we can generate enough trustworthy and high quality data in order to just let humanoid AI robots loose on a different planet and have them operate in a completely functional and safe, fruitful way.
So, I mean, I agree, and partly it's because the point we touched on earlier is that how do you provide training data for a place that's been unexplored? I mean, the whole point of exploration is to discover things that are not known yet. So yes. Obviously, the things that we do know, we think we know, you can obviously train, but the discovery of the unexpected, I'm yet to be convinced that artificial intelligence is going to be really helpful with that. But perhaps I'm wrong. Perhaps you could train it to spot the unexpected. But the other thing that I'm slightly concerned about with artificial intelligence on other planetary bodies is where the energy comes from. I mean, like I mentioned, the Perseverance rover is nuclear powered. It's powered by a radioactive isotope thermoelectric generator, which is basically a container of plutonium salts, and then this gets hot as the plutonium decays, and thermocouples around the plutonium core convert the heat into electricity. But that produces 110 watts. Now, you don't get much artificial intelligence for 100 watts. I mean, I don't know, but I think you need probably hundreds of watts or kilowatts. Depends how much artificial intelligence you need currently for a really capable AI system. So, unless you've got a large energy source on Mars, then you've got to ask the question: where's the energy going to come from to maintain a really capable AI system? Of course, you can have the AI on the Earth and make decisions and beam them up to the robot on Mars, but then you've immediately got the latency problem. I mean, it can take 20 minutes to get a signal from the Earth to Mars and 20 minutes back. I mean, that is the extreme. It can be as little as 4 minutes each way, depending on where Mars is in its orbit. But in any case, you've got this large latency, which is going to greatly reduce many of the advantages, the purported advantages of AI. if you have to keep your AI system on the Earth because of this long time delay to and fro. Whereas a human being on the surface would, as we've discussed, be making their decisions sort of instantly in real time. Having said all of this, I suspect it'll pan out to be a balance. I mean, obviously, artificial intelligence is going to have a role in space exploration, and so is robotics. So I do think it's a false dichotomy, like I said, to make it an either-or thing. I think as we explore the solar system, I can see good reasons for having both humans and robots.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I also don't want to present it as an either or. I think it's great that we are creating humanoid robots to explore space alongside us. But I'm also happy that interest in going back to the moon is back, because it's exciting and it's fun. And you mentioned earlier in our conversation that we initially thought we figured out the moon and that there was not much science to be done anymore. But that part of the reason that we're going back now is that we apparently understand now that there is still a lot more to learn about the moon. So why are we going back right now? What prompted this return to the moon?
Well, I do think it's important to, again, separate the scientific reasons. I mean, I'm happy to enunciate all the scientific reasons I think we need to return to the moon. But of course, there's also a geopolitical aspect to the Artemis program. I mean, there is new geopolitical competition in the world, this time between principally the US and China. But not only though, between the US and China. I mean, one of the things that's happened in lunar exploration over the last 20 years is that many countries in newly developing countries developing their space capabilities. So, European Space Agency, India, Japan, Korea, they've all realized that if you want to demonstrate your space capability and Mars is too far away, then the moon is the only show in town, really. And part of this is driven by science, but part of it is also driven by geopolitical competition and national prestige. So I think it would be naive to claim that, although I'm going to give you in a minute, if you want, a whole long list of the scientific reasons for going back to the moon. I'm not so naive as to think this is the end, this is the main or only reason. But still, I can see a great many scientific benefits of a human return to the moon.